video. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the Rules Committee to order. If I could get a motion to accept our previous minutes.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We have a resolution coming before us today congratulating Akron School for the Arts at Firestone CLC, Firestone Theater, students Kyle McFalls and Riley Horowitz in winning awards to the 2024 Dazzle Awards, recognizing Firestone Theater for their continued excellence and declaring an emergency. Mr. Volman.
Hi, I am actually very excited to be here in my wheelhouse today. I have probably authored or spoken on dozens of resolutions over the years, primarily honoring Councilman Fusco and Councilman Lombardo's alma mater, St. Vincent St. Mary. Great achievements in sports, especially basketball. But if there's a St. V for theater in this city, that school would be the Akron School for the Arts at Firestone CLC. Led for the past 3 decades by theater director Mark A. Zimmerman, Ellen Marie Kazel, Firestone has continuously put on quality theater that will astonish you and leave you doubting that this is a high school performance. My first experience with a show that Mr. Zimmerman directed was Guys and Dolls, and I believe that was in 1998, and I thought just that. I had gone to school and we had musicals, but this was something different. From the acting, the costumes, the set, I thought, how is this high school? Over the years, Firestone has continued to put on winning shows, including the Dazzle for Best Musical in 2018 for their production of Chicago. And my kids used to say fun fact all the time. I don't know if kids say that anymore or not, but I actually attended that show with a young assistant director of law, Shamus Malik. Firestone is often selected to be the first school in Ohio to put on a show, like next year's production of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, or even in the country, like The Prom in 2022 or Trial by Fire last year. The Dazzle Awards are the equivalent of the Tony Awards for high schools in Northeast Ohio. 37 schools across 7 counties compete for awards each year. In addition to acting, choreography, technical awards, beginning in 2022, the Dazzles began recognizing the student who most embodies camaraderie, passion, and infectiously positive attitude throughout the rehearsal week with the Spirit of the Dazzle Awards. Recently graduated Riley Horowitz, who was also the outgoing president of Firestone's Thespian Group, was this year's recipient of the award. Not only is this a testament to Riley and her parents, Vicki and Dan, but this is the second time in the 3-year existence of the award that it went to a Firestone student. In the spring of 2024, Firestone produced their spring musical, The SpongeBob Musical. Of the 8 actors nominated for Best Actor in all of Northeast Ohio, 2 were from Firestone. Recently graduated Stanley Niekamp and upcoming senior Kyle McFalls, with Kyle, the son of Akron Fire Lieutenant Sean McFalls, and his wife Laura, taking home the prize for his portrayal of the title role. As winner of the Dazzle for Best Actor, Kyle is off to New York City to compete in the Jimmy Awards, the National High School Musical Theater Awards on Broadway. And as, like basketball, there is no off-season for theater, he will be flying immediately to Indiana to join 4 of his fellow students, including Riley Horowitz, who will be competing at the International Thespian Conference later this month. This is a great honor, and I'm very proud to introduce. I don't know if anybody would want to say anything or not, but you are more than welcome. If not, I would ask for suspension of the rules.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roman. Would any of the recipients like to say anything? If so, you could step up to the microphone.
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy, yeah.
Hard to believe that actors would be shy.
Hi, this is loud. I just want to thank Firestone for supporting me and the city for helping and just everything that's been done to support our program and help with our continued success. And yeah, that's it. And go Firestone.
I just want to thank Mr. Zimmerman and Ms. Kazel for making me feel extremely prepared for continuing my acting career. I'm going to Ohio University for acting. And I want to thank my parents and my grandparents especially for making me the person that I am today. And then, of course, thank you to the Dazzle Awards and everyone that did that. And thank you for everyone here. Thank you so much.
If I may, I also wouldn't be me if I didn't point out that Council Regular Whitman Sullivan is also a Firestone Theater student, and Harry Potter next year in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Ballman. Do we have any committee members have any comments? Any? Sure. Councilwoman Connor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to also congratulate the students on, I'd like to just take a shout out again to Mark Zimmerman and Ella Marie. Their work over the years has been tremendous. We've had the opportunity to work with them, having been at Miller South for a number of years, which is kind of one of the feeder schools into Firestone. It's been great to watch the collaboration, and as Mr. Volman said, you would never guess these are high school students. They're just amazing productions, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Been down with something lately. Just want to congratulate the students. It's just amazing to watch the students at Firestone performances. I've gone to several of them over the years, and they've all been outstanding, and I certainly wish them all well. I'm not sure what the young man is planning to do, but the young lady's already told us that she's planning to pursue her acting career, and it sounds like she's going in the right direction. I don't know if he's willing to share if he's planning to do the same or not, but congratulations and thank you so much. And thanks to the teachers and the instructors, advisors, because you guys just have done tremendous work over the years. We certainly thank you. As a former school board member, I can certainly say thank you, thank you, thank you. And as a member of this city, we thank you and wish everyone well.
And I think I can answer for the young man who is going into his senior year next year. So he's still got one more year at Firestone, and then we'll figure out.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilman Fusco.
Yeah, congratulations to all. And it seems as though we're shifting our priorities here in our city. You know, we're a big sports town, as you know. But the arts these last 10 years or so has really kind of taken off. And Sean, this is unprecedented, I believe. You wouldn't believe this, I'm a little older, but I've not seen anything like this before us here in council, and I think it's a great precedent that we're setting here. And thank you for that, and good luck, and keep up the good work. We certainly appreciate it, and just as my colleague Linda Mobian had mentioned, you know, special to the teachers and the instructors and those that put in the time, the parents and everyone supporting our littles. So thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Any other council members?
Mr. Chair, Councilman Hardy has his hand raised online.
Who was that?
Councilman Hardy.
Councilman Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Huge shout out to the award winners, and as a proud graduate of Firestone and what was at that time called the Visual and Performing Arts Program. It really is tremendous, and I would second Councilman Fusco's notion we should be bringing in the arts even more than we do. I had the pleasure of participating in the first inaugural Firestone High School alumni choir performance this weekend, and it was amazing to see folks going all the way back to 1970, class of 1970, performing with the current symphonic choir and some of the other vocal performance students within the school. And arts education is such an important part of Akron Public Schools and of our city, and we don't talk about it enough. So this is just tremendous. So Mr. Volman, thank you for bringing this in, and thank you to the students and to Mr. Zimmerman for continuing what has been a long tradition of excellence at Firestone.
Thank you, Councilman. Sarah, am I missing anybody else?
I don't see any other hands
Okay.
raised.
Yes, this program at Firestone is incredible. My wife and I have seen several performances there and just extremely impressed over the years. And as was stated before, you watch these students and sometimes you forget that they're students because they're that good. This is an incredible accomplishment. Not to steal any thunder whatsoever from Riley, but I do have a little history with the McFalls. I worked with Mike McFalls, who's the grandfather, and Sean. And Sean also, I can see where some talent comes from because Sean fronted a band and was a singer for a band, and I saw him perform several times. Very impressive, a lot of talent. So it's just the possibilities are endless, I'm sure, for these two, and really looking forward to see where they end up and accomplish. Can I get a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
So moved.
So, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, Mr. Vollman, thanks so much for bringing this in, and we will get this passed out this evening, and congratulations to all. We have nothing else to come before rules, and we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee today is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Hardy, and Lombardo. Looks like we do have all committee members present. Some are still connecting to video. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I'd like to call the public service meeting to order, please. We do have minutes to approve from last week. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
So moved, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
All right, all in favor of the minutes? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We do have 3 new pieces in front of us today, and Sarah, if you don't mind, I'd be greatly appreciated if you could read those in.
Sure. The first item is item number 5, and it's an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into contract without publicly advertising for bids with 5 contractors for construction services pursuant to the city's housing rehabilitation program and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. And I do see we have a few representatives with us, and I believe this might fall under Mr. Lash.
Yes, Councilman, good afternoon to you and members of council. This piece of legislation falls under our Housing and Community Services Division, and I've brought Doug Taylor to speak more in depth about this particular piece.
Good afternoon. This is for 5 contractors to enter into a contract with us to do business over the next 2 years. Each one of the 2 contracts would be for $1 million maximum each. That's pending that they actually win the bids. This is so that we can have the pool of money here. This is what we've done for the 10 previous contractors, so we'd like to add 5 more to our bidding list.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments? Committee members? I don't see any. Anyone online? Sarah, do you see anyone?
I don't see any hands raised, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lash, what are you looking to do with this piece? Consent agenda or suspension of the rules?
Consent is fine, sir.
All right, thank you. Committee?
Motion for consent?
Thank you. I have a motion, a second for consent. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll put that on the consent agenda. Sarah, if you could read in number 6, please.
Item number 6 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids or requesting and receiving quotes or requests for proposals for upgrades to the fire panel at the municipal building and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah, and I do believe this will fall under Chris Luddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee. Yes, in the capital budget, we had a line item to replace the fire panel in this building. The age of the current fire panel needs to be upgraded to the new NFPA Standard 72. The current panel does enunciate throughout the whole building, but there are so many new features with the new fire panel. So it would allow the fire or police to go to the fire panel, communicate to a specific floor instead of just one announcement. This would allow them to maybe to stay in place or to exit the building, and they could make those announcements. And also, the new panel, whether it's fire or another emergency, will give so much more function to all of our employees. So with that, I will take any questions to this piece of legislation.
Thank you, Chris. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? All right, anybody online with us? All right, Sarah, do you see anyone that I do not see?
I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Chris, what is your pleasure on this?
Consent's fine, sir. We're going to advertise for bids. It's going to be a little bit before we get it and then install it.
Thank you.
Motion for consent.
Committee?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to the next one, number 7, Sarah, please.
Item number 7 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from the United States Environmental Protection Agency and Climate Justice Community Change Grant for the Resilient Infrastructure and Sustainable Environments RISE Summit Lake Project and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. I see we have several other folks that are joining us today. I'm guessing this might be explained to us by Casey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The rest of the committee. I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay, and then maybe you can signal to me that you are able to see it. I can see it. You all can too. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so yes, we have a grant opportunity that we'd like to overview with all of you. This is a federal EPA grant, Climate Justice and Community Change. It's a let me figure out how to move forward here. Here we go. It's a $20 million max allowable award, 3-year strict time frame for execution of the projects included in the application. And this is a little bit of an unusual application process, so they're being accepted on a rolling basis through November. We are hoping to apply this summer in maybe the July timeframe. The reason for that is we have the opportunity with this grant to apply, have the EPA's technical assistants review our application, suggest adjustments, and provide feedback, and then we can reapply before the November timeframe. So it's just a very unusual process that offers a lot of benefits, so we want to take advantage of those by applying early. The main parameters for this grant are that applicants tackle climate change and pollution issues, but that we do so in historically disadvantaged, historically disinvested communities. And the reason for that is that they are looking for, solutions to climate change factors, solutions to pollution issues that are good for the environment, obviously, but also good for people, right? Especially people in communities that may be facing disproportionate stressors. For instance, maybe have suffered from disconnection of major throughways or highways, maybe are facing poor air quality, higher asthma rates. A good portion of housing stock might be old, energy inefficient, they might be energy burdened because of that. Those kinds of issues that sort of exist at the intersection, I would say, of environmental and social and economic, right? So if you can develop projects that address the intersection of those issues, that tackle multiple challenges, that's what this grant is looking for, and honestly, that's what good sustainability work, I think, is generally, coming up with projects and solutions that, have multiple co-benefits to them. With that in mind, we're planning to target Summit Lake with this application. We have identified OECC as the main community-based partner and have already begun collaborating with Dan Rice on this. We're in the process of developing a series of projects for the application that we think are responsive to the needs identified by residents of the Summit Lake community over the past several years. I'm sure, we've all been following, I think, and involved in some capacity. There's been a lot of momentum around community engagement and reinvestment in Summit Lake, and so I think there's opportunity here to build on that. I'm going to touch on these projects at a very high level. You can sort of see them outlined here into buckets. The first theme at the top right is really green space. So we're working on development of greenways projects, so multi-use pathways that cut through traditional city blocks, allow for greater walkability, bikeability, greater connectivity through the neighborhood. They make us a little bit less car dependent, which is good for the environment. We're also in this sort of green space theme category. We're thinking about pocket parks, support for community food garden space, and also tree canopy development. I believe average canopy cover in Akron is 35%, Summit Lake's at 22%. So there's a disparity there that this could help us to address. And that would also help us to sort of redistribute, tree canopy money elsewhere in the city, right, if this grant is going to help us take care of Summit Lake. Housing is the second theme here, and we're thinking in two ways, both energy-efficient new infill housing and also energy-efficient rehab work on existing housing stock in the neighborhood that is, older and probably drafty and needs reinvestment. Bike lanes is a little bit of an outlier here. I couldn't find a good theme for that one, but I think it fits with, along with the greenways, kind of creating more connectivity through the neighborhood, more bikeability and walkability, making us less car dependent. So it makes sense in that vein. I am going to move forward here and talk a little bit about why Summit Lake, and I might ask my colleagues to help me through this a bit. I think it aligns with the EPA grant objectives. So there's a legacy here in Summit Lake of historical disinvestment. There's a variety of challenges and stressors that the neighborhood is facing, and those intersect nicely with climate change and environmental factors. So again, to my point earlier about this grant, wanting to see solutions at the local level that are not just good for the environment, but also good for people. I think, there are opportunities in this neighborhood to do just that. Community partners, I think, are already established, and engagement, like I said, there's momentum here in Summit Lake that we can build upon. Many of the projects help us to implement the vision of the Summit Lake land plan. And Kyle, I might pass it to you if you can talk about this, not just the land plan, but also how this grant and the projects we're thinking of will help us sort of meet commitments we've made in the neighborhood.
Yeah, so this plan follows directly on three and a half years of community engagement in Summit Lake. Obviously precedes my time here, but carrying the ball forward, we've been working through there to, in that neighborhood, to magnify the work through the civic commons that the Ohio Erie Canalway is doing, and also to partner with AMHA in their effort to rebuild their inventory in that neighborhood through the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative grant that we're co-applying with later this year. And then, we also conducted that land use plan, which was brought to council earlier this year alongside with the rezoning of the neighborhood with the form-based code. And so along with the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative co-grant or co-application that we're doing with AMHA to HUD there, for those grant dollars, the city is required to make specific commitments to help in the neighborhood, channel investments into the neighborhood, not just into the AMHA properties. And so this grant would allow us to have a dedicated source for some of those commitments and fulfill some of the pieces that were called out in the land use plan and in from the community engagement that emerged from the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative by AMHA.
Okay, and so I think we could go anywhere you'd like to. I don't want to take up too much of the committee's time, so I'm happy to kind of switch gears to questions or thoughts that you all have on this. We could, if you had a question about a particular project, we could dive deeper into that as well. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you for the presentation. I appreciate that. Committee members, any questions or comments? I don't see anyone. Anyone online with us? Sarah, do you see anyone?
Yes, Councilman Fusco has his hand raised.
All right, Councilman.
Thank you, Chair Kamer. So we're talking about the housing piece in terms of meeting EPA expectations. So am I envisioning perhaps a developer or something coming in that could utilize a portion of the funds to ensure that the property would meet specific standards?
Yes, that's one of the goals that we would be is to support development, new construction development that would have, pardon the technical language, super high energy efficiency.
Yes, okay.
And then, perhaps offset the gap between regular construction and these advanced features, and be electrification. Have that piece in it, perhaps solar ready, but much more energy efficient building envelope than is traditional construction, so that we can attract new construction to the neighborhood and also help set the market. But then obviously we're going, with this process, there would be, higher construction costs and thicker walls and ceilings and those types of things. And so this would be an opportunity there to attract investment, attract private investment, but then help to, sort of offset some of that cost. The flip side of that would be some rehab work, and so that we would be able to provide funding to improve existing homeowners' properties, replace some furnaces, perhaps upgrade the windows, those types of things, so that we can have reduce the energy cost, improve the energy efficiency, improve indoor air quality, which we know is a big trigger for childhood asthma, those types of things. So those would be the two components related to housing.
Gotcha. Would this also include lead abatement? I know that we've done quite a bit. And have we tracked the lead abatement within the footprint of the Summit Lake area? What we've done already and what still needs to be done, and could that be part of it?
I think we have data on lead abatement done in the neighborhood. It's a good question because it's something that it's been on our mind and kind of working through. Is what work we'll be able to do with the money allotted for housing rehab. So we have, dreams of energy efficiency improvements, right? Everything from like better sealing the home, right? Envelope tightening to HVAC upgrades, maybe electrical panel and wiring work. But when you get into a home and it needs lead abatement and maybe there's an asbestos problem, we have to kind of figure out what to do about that as well. So behind the scenes, we're kind of talking about how do we make the most of the money. So yes, we have, I think, a list of lead abatement work done in Summit Lake, and we're going to be thinking through strategically how to structure this.
Okay.
I should have mentioned at the beginning as well. So Kyle Julian and Esther Thomas is here as well. We've sort of been leading this effort, but it's been a cross-departmental effort. There's a team of us that have been working on shaping this application, which might be obvious because of how many projects we're hoping to capitalize on in it. And there's no match required with the grant, which is great.
I'll stop.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
Yes,
I have one question, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, like, with the grant, how long will it last? And with the opportunity to serve so many people out there, this would be great to bring them from like a 1930s construction rating to the 21st century. So I'm kind of excited to hear what those numbers are and how many you think you can actually get to with that dollar amount. And I know you don't know how much you are going to get, but up to 20 million always makes me excited.
Yeah, do you want to speak to, so I'm not sure that we have exact numbers on what we're going to be able to get to. Still trying to work out what work should be, folded into the rehab portion of this in particular. I think initially we were thinking about being able to reach about 150 units, but we're still sort of doing the math and putting together where can we capitalize on lead work that's already been done, and maybe this grant money doesn't have to go towards that. So we're working through it a bit, but we're hoping to spread it out as much as possible in the neighborhood, the rehab work.
Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to bike lanes, we're planning on putting in more.
Yeah, we're in the early stages of a pedestrian and bike safety plan for the neighborhood, and so which receive funding through AMATS, and actually that won't kick off in earnest until I think July. Mm-hmm. But with that, we hope there's some significant problems there around bike and pedestrian safety in the neighborhood. So we hope to address those issues there and use some of these funds to make it easier to get around without a car in the neighborhood. Okay. So we know a lot of people are carless in that neighborhood.
All right. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. What ward maybe has a lot of heavy bike lane traffic? I mean, do you know what part of the city? I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough. I don't know. Maybe I'm working and they're all biking. I don't know. I mean, I got to be honest with you, if I can. I mean, the residents I talk to just aren't big fans of it. So just, help me out. And where is there a lot of traffic?
Well, I don't know. I don't have the data in front of me, but I can certainly work on getting that for you. I think that when it comes to bike infrastructure, there's two things to keep in mind. At least from the urban planning perspective, what I like to keep in mind. One is that a safe and transparently usable infrastructure network of bike lanes creates opportunities for folks, cities all over the country and indeed the world, when they've created that safe and transparently usable bike infrastructure network, have seen their numbers go up. We don't have that yet, and so I think one of the things that keeps our numbers low is the fact that we don't have that network yet. The second thing to keep in mind is we do have bicyclists that are out there. We have people, we see more and more e-bikes. This is anecdotal. And so we are seeing more people turn to those modes of transportation. But the dangers of biking in this city are significant, real, and in recent history, we've had 2 deaths of bicyclists this year, and so I think we have an obligation to address the mode of transportation for those folks, and to make it easier, and allow folks to get around with choice.
Okay, I guess I'm thinking more recreational biking. I'd rather use the towpath trail, but that's just me. The spin scooters, are they allowed on in the bike lanes? They are? Okay. Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McKittrick, is that you with your hand raised?
I do have a couple questions and comments, but Esther Thomas had her hand up. I think she has something she wanted to add. I'll yield to her first. Thank you.
Thank you, members of council. I wanted to add that a significant part of this grant is community engagement. One of the concerns of the grantor is that we implement this grant, should we be fortunate enough to receive it, with the community, not on the community or imposed upon them. So as a result, making sure that we have key community engagement objectives is important, and that we create meaningful opportunities for community engagement and decision-making. We are, as Kyle and Casey have said, we want to engage with Summit Lake CDC, Summit Lake Neighborhood Association, Summit Lake Community Council, and build upon the Civic Commons work. We've already, as a team, began to meet with those community organizations so that they feel that and that we are proposing these ideas and that they have input and engagement in that. We're going to actively attend meetings and focus that are about the neighborhood, in the neighborhood, and focus on the neighborhood needs that have been surfaced through some of the other documents. A key point, which I think is really important, is that this grant, and it's different than other grants that I've seen, is that we are encouraged to remove barriers for community engagement, such as stipends for attendance at meetings, perhaps even providing daycare so that people can come in and weigh in on their community and what the future holds for that. And so we will be convening a project group, a neighborhood project group, and they'll receive a stipend for their time and investment in the civic project. Thank you.
Councilman McKittrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I think, Councilman Lombardo, I think you did somewhat hit the nail on the head when you talked about the towpath. And I think there's been a lot of talk about the towpath because of this area, and it's kind of like the center point. And I can attest, when I was still working for the city, I commuted in good weather or decent weather on a bicycle, and I live quite a ways from downtown. But that was my route home, was through that area, and with other pathways and bikeways through there, I'm sure I would have utilized those as well to get a little change of scenery. But I do believe that that area could use that, especially in that area. But thanks so much.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? Councilman Fusco?
Just a brief, just that I'm really glad to see us piggybacking on the success that we've had before and the momentum this neighborhood is getting. And I think it's wonderful, and all I can say at this point is go get them.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks. If there's no one else, I'd like to make a comment. I know a couple comments were about bike lanes, and I'm going to go ahead and make this plug now too. Obviously, we had a few accidents with bicyclists here in the city of Akron, and one of them was actually in my ward approximately 2 weeks ago. And I do know I drove down there just the last few days to take a look at some of the bike lanes and the paint. And I am hoping we as a city can move forward and work together and try to address how we can make these bike lanes and our traffic ways safer for our folks that do ride bikes. And as a new e-bike owner myself now, I know Chris is starting to feel the heat from me because I'm using the e-bike to drive all over the ward and writing down a bunch of concerns. So I'm sending him a bunch of stuff now. So I'm having fun doing that. But no, moving forward, this is a good grant opportunity, and I support it. And I'm just asking that since we're talking about the potential of bike lanes and adding bike lanes and the safety, I'm just plugging it now because this is the first time we're able to have that conversation, and hopefully we as a city can move forward to try to increase the safety so bicyclists can be safe and enjoy. So that's that. Thank you. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I did see a hand raised online. Councilman Hardy, did you still have a comment?
I did. Thank you. I just wanted to give Casey and the team my best. This is a really tough grant. I have a lot of grantees through my work that are working on this particular program, trying to get theirs in, and it sounds and looks fantastic. And Mr. Julian, I really appreciated your answer on the bike lanes and couldn't agree more. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else? I know I can't see Chambers right now because I still see Councilman Hardy on my screen, but what are the wishes for this piece of legislation?
I think consent agenda. Is that possible?
Okay, committee?
Motion for consent agenda?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor for consent? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. That is it for
Thank
public
you.
service. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hannah, and Davis. We do have all committee members present. Councilwoman Davis is here online with us. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Viviana. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order. If I could get a motion to accept our previous minutes.
I'll make that motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Sorry.
Okay, we have three pieces that come before us today. The first piece is resolution approving and adopting the Summit County 911 plan and declaring an emergency. I see we have several people here before us. Our new fire chief, Chief Henderson. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Who will be in our new chief? Fire Chief Harding, who will be presenting today on this?
That will be me.
Okay, Chief, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of council. So this is a change to the 911 plan for the state. The state went from funding source for mobile devices of 25 cents per device to 40 cents per device, and also increased that to other devices. Similar would be like a smartwatch. In the past, those were not charged that fee. So that will become additional resources for the state, and those are ultimately sent back to the county. So the change in the plan is a couple-fold. One, to adopt those changes from the state and the funding source. In the past, there were 4 public safety answering points that received the funding. Now, every one in the county will receive that funding based on call volume, which naturally we will still get the bulk of that. So that's one significant change. The other change is that as we begin to share this technology, in the past, the money would go to the county would give us the money, and then we would then go into like agreement with our Vesta 911 phone system and write those checks back. Now, based on that usage, when the money comes in, they'll factor that out first, and only what's left will come back. So financially, it's just how the money is coming in and where it's going. This will also assist us as we continue to work with the state and the community on additional implementations moving forward. A prime example would be like text to 911 and some next generation 911 that the state's working. If we can get everybody in the county on a similar systems, it'll be much easier to implement that. So we are part of the county plan, and this was crafted by Akron and the county jointly on that. So any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions from any committee members? Can you see anybody online?
I do not see any hands raised.
Thank you. Any other council members? Mr. Fusco.
Just an easy, I think that's a layup. So are we, I assume at this point, given the call center where it's at today, we're fully in compliant with the state regs in terms of, because I know we had to combine communities and so on and so forth. At this point, we're fully in compliant with everything?
Absolutely, yeah.
I figured, but I
Yep,
was...
completely in compliant. Our call answer rates meet or exceed state expectations, and our dispatchers do an amazing job every day. But thank you for that question.
Yeah, I thought we were, but I just wanted to verify that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, and they do a great job for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. What's your pleasure on this?
I'd like it to be as an emergency so we can get that implemented and get the funding started right away, if we could, please.
Okay. Could I get a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
Make that motion to suspend the rules.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll get that out tonight, and we'll move on to our next piece here. All right, our next piece is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with Phoenix Safety Outfitters for the purchase of structural firefighting gear for the Akron Fire Division and declaring an emergency. Who will be presenting? Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. This was asked by purchasing to do this. We had 3 separate invoices and they wanted them combined. So we wrote the legislation for this. Like he said, this is for 42 sets of new structural firefighting gear, or outer gear we wear, coat and pants, suspenders, for our rookie class of 2023. And then we had 60 sets, which were replacement gear. We have to replace every 10 years. They're out of warranty after that. And I believe there was a couple of repairs thrown in there that they do on our fire gear, Phoenix Safety. So the total was $283, $413, and 38 cents. And this was all budgeted for, and they just wanted us to combine it through purchasing. So I'll take any questions you have. Thank you.
So that's a total of 102 sets, is that correct, or?
Yeah, what do we got?
60 and 42?
102 with a couple of repairs in there
Okay.
that were just put on there, like they do the knees, you remember?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
And this request is an emergency request.
Yeah.
Okay.
Suspension.
We have any questions from any committee members? Mr. Lombardo?
Sure, thank you. I have no problem with this. Little education here.
Sure.
So those sets are only like warranted for 10 years? Do they go 10 years? I mean,
Yeah,
do they
we've
go
implemented.
5 years or 6 years? I mean,
Well, they have 2 sets, and so when you get dirty at a fire, now we go back, wash that set, jump in your other set.
Okay.
And what we're just getting to now is getting it so we don't have to buy 2 sets at 10 years. We've staggered them, and we've implemented a new system. When they get to like 8, 9, we start buying. So we're not getting loaded with gear. But yes, after 10 years, NFPA and them, they will not warranty them.
So I will interject with your question. I think you're asking, do they all last 10 years? The answer is no. Depending on if they were in a chemical exposure, depending on how damaged they were due to a fire, yes, they may have to be replaced much sooner than the 10 years.
Right, I mean, I don't wish for any fires, obviously, but, it just, 10 years, great, but like you said, the situations that you encounter
Yes.
every day.
And they're inspected every year as well.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Any other questions from any other council members? You stated suspension of the rules because this has come back to combine these. This
Yeah.
one, so.
Okay.
Can I get a motion for suspension of the rules, a favorable report?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. We'll get that out tonight.
Thank you, Council.
All right, we have the final piece to come before us today. Number 10 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to expend funds from the appropriate account or accounts in the amount of $150,000 to the Akron Community Foundation in furtherance of the Initiative by Victim Assistance Program to assist in those community members impacted by gun violence and declaring an emergency. Who will be presenting on this today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Myself and some guests who are with us today. So thank you to the members of the committee and to council as a whole for receiving this legislation so late. We have been scrambling and, as you know, trying to cope each day with the massive impact that the events of June 2nd have had in our community, affecting now, we understand, 28 victims directly and their families, and untold numbers of residents in Ward 5, Councilman Johnny Hanna's ward. So I have with me today the Chief of Police, our Deputy Director of Finance, and guests Leanne Graham, the Executive Director of Victim Assistance Program, and Vice President John Garfalo of the Akron Community Foundation, where late last week discussions began based on the outreach of many community leaders to see how the community could rally around the folk most affected by this. And so it was decided that at Akron Community Foundation, a fund would be formed, the Gun Violence Response Fund, which was created at Akron Community Foundation on Friday morning to support the work of Victim Assistance Program, Inc., to meet the needs of those impacted by gun violence in our community today and into the future. And you have before you a piece of legislation that highlights the gross impact of gun violence in our community, which is known to many of our council members. It has affected most every ward when we look at the maps and hotspots and incidents of gun violence across our community, but an unprecedented event on June 2nd. And so we would ask for passage of this legislation, seeking that City Council, together with the mayor, would seed this new fund with an initial donation of $150,000. And again, our Deputy Director of Finance is here to address where those funds would come from. But I want first to hand over to Ms. Graham and to Mr. Garfalo. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Our organization serves 5,000 individuals who have been impacted by crisis, violence, and tragedy. That is 5,000 a year. The majority of funding that we seek for our $2.5 million organization is primarily to staff. 40 individuals throughout 6 office locations. We try to make our service accessible to those. We work on a lean budget. We don't have funds that are able to contribute to the financial distress and strain that is put on these individuals. So although our agency has, for the past 52 years of our service, had an extremely small line item in our budget, we typically have $4,000 per year to spend on the 5,000 individuals that we serve. That money is gone. It has been gone. So I would appreciate you understanding the complexity of the emotional, physiological, psychological, and financial, which is just vast, that will happen to these individuals, these 28 individuals, specifically for Kelly Avenue, but in our future as well. It is a dire need because we are not able to seek those funds from our community and through others. So I do thank the city as well as Akron Community Foundation for being interested in funding such an initiative.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. The main reason Akron Community Foundation is in existence is to identify needs in the community and support them financially. We've been doing that for 70 years plus, and the need is great. Last Friday, our board of directors created this fund, the Gun Violence Response Fund. That response always gets me. Response Fund, and additionally seeding it with $25,000 from our organization. We've also gotten a commitment from the United Way of Summit and Medina to also contribute $25,000, and we are going out with a fundraising plan to promote this fund within the community. We already received one $10,000 donation. Many have asked how they could help, and this is one way that they could help. We will monitor the funds that come in. We will give them to victim assistance as needed, closely monitoring the progress of what the monies are spent for. And we respectfully ask for your consideration to help add to the fund.
I wanted to point out that in the coming days, the Akron Community Foundation, together with the group of leaders appointed to the fund as co-chairs of the fund to guide its formation, Ron Pado of Huntington Bank, Reverend Dr. Charles Myricks of Arlington Church of God, and Tracy Carter of Summa Healthcare System, all who know the community, and they will be putting together a committee of folk who will guide work together with Victim Assistance Program to guide the formation of that fund and the fundraising for that fund. I also wanted to mention that Victim Assistance Program, as you may know, is normally a conduit to state funds that come through from the federal level to help victims. What we've learned in these days is beside that emergency fund that is at the discretion of victim assistance, those state funds have any expenditure that a victim has. In order to access those state funds, it's done on a reimbursement basis. So the victim has to have that money to expend and then can apply to be reimbursed within certain categories. But if you don't have the money to outlay for a funeral or to compensate for your lack of work or to pay a big unexpected medical bill, you then can't get reimbursed because you can't make that payment. And no one else can make that payment on your behalf and get reimbursed. So victim assistance finds that their hands are tied and they actually can't meet many of the needs of the victims when a real crisis like this one occurs. And we also know that all of the other victims within our community don't stop having tragic events around this time. So Victim Assistance Fund has found in this last week that they have their usual level and now this unprecedented event happening. So I think that's the reason for this fund at this time, beside the scourge that gun violence is in our nation and in our community. But I wanted to also include Chief Harding, who is also a board member of Victim Assistance.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members of council. No, I'm excited for this opportunity. I think this is really beneficial as we continue to try to help victims, specifically around this, but impacted across gun violence across our community. As Leanne and others have said, that they have a need, consistently a need, and that whole, at least in the beginning, I think this is a fund that can really help with that. I'm excited that the communities now be able to take a larger role in this as well. We've already started, as they mentioned, already started to see that. That's one question we're always asked by community members as well, as what we can do to help, and this is a step in that direction. So I really appreciate your support.
Thank you.
So we'll be taking $150,000 from our $11 million that we had allocated from our ARPA city budget stabilization budget, and we'll be allocating it directly to this violence and intervention program, and that's how we'd like to proceed. So this will be an ARPA-funded direct expenditure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wheeler. We have any questions from any committee members? Mr. Hanna. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's a great idea to allow $150,000 to go toward the victim assistance. My question is, going forward with these funds, will the city be asked again in the future after you've depleted these funds? Will you come back to the city and ask for another $150,000? Because sooner or later you're going to run out of money.
It is our plan to seek funding outside from other sources, and it is a way, as Chief Harding said, for the community to rally around those who have been affected by this horrific event. So it is not the current plan to return to the city, although, of course, as a fund that reaches out and helps our residents, any donations would always be welcome. So we can see you afterwards if you like, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Any other committee members or council members?
Just a
Mr.
comment.
Mr. Lombardo.
Just thank you for what you do, because it's a needed service in the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious, this fund will only be developed and set aside for gun violence activities or events around gun violence. That's one. Secondly, could you be specific as to how these funds would be dispersed? I'm not intimately knowledgeable about how you do your work, but I know that a lot of folks have been traumatized and affected by this, and some have gone to the hospital. And I know we had one death, I believe, if that's still correct. And just talk about that. And when we talk about the death, would the indigent funds also be available to that family as well?
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes, there is only one deceased victim of the events on June the 2nd at this time, Lateris Cook. And his family would be eligible for support and has, in fact, already, I believe, had support from the fund. Currently, this fund has been established to address gun violence specifically. It's a gun violence response fund. So implicit in the name is a sense of it being focused on that issue. And again, if you read the legislation, there are compelling reasons to see the horrific impact of gun violence across our nation, which I know you are aware of too. And in the future, the idea is that this fund was established in response to the events on June 2nd, and we hope that the fundraising goes so well that we might be able to support additional victims of gun violence in the future. But the focus at this time, as we repair and heal our community, is to focus on the victims of the June 2nd mass shooting and the impact that that has had in the community on the victims and their families. Would you like to?
Mr. Chair, I have two follow-up questions, if I may, please.
Go right ahead.
The second question has to do with those individuals that are directly impacted by the June 2nd event. How are you? I know you're creating a committee, so I'm not sure if you know exactly how you plan to utilize these funds to directly impact them at this moment. And I don't know if the Director of Victims Assistance could talk about their daily work.
Thank you. With regards to how these funds are going to be determined and the eligibility criteria, guardrails, those are all welcome, and we want to hear as much input as we can. That's why we're going to build out that advisory committee. So this week, we will be meeting and starting the ball rolling to really for them to understand the experience we have working with victims and what they've gone through in the complexity of identifying financial needs. So we are going to be looking to the advisory committee for guidance on that, because today we don't have as strict guidelines or guardrails that I feel we need to, because we're talking, hopefully, about a significant amount of money, and we want to put some other procedures in place. With respect to the other type of work we're doing, we respond on scene upon requests from law enforcement, EMS, the medical examiner's office. We are also a member of the Emergency Management Agency for Summit County. We are written into the operations plan if there was a mass casualty, critical incident, and the Emergency Operations Center went into effect, then our agency would respond to the mental health needs or assist with the development of a family assistance center. So that is what our organization is prepared to address, the needs of any type of trauma, whether it be crime-related victims or traumatic victims, whether that be suicide, traffic fatality, infant death, those unexpected deaths. So we do help all victims of crime and trauma. However, this specific fund is going to be for those victims of gun violence.
And my final question, and perhaps this is not in your wheelhouse. I know one of the real serious challenges we have is trying to get guns off the street. And I don't know if this has anything directly to do with this fund or not. We talk about buyback programs, any way we can get guns out of the hands of of folks because there are just too many guns on the street. Would this be a byproduct or an indirect way of addressing that as well? Just thinking of other ways that we can help victims or avoid all of this kind of fatality and violence.
Councilwoman Hannah, and I apologize, everybody. I literally just hopped on a Zoom call because I had the password. We've just coalesced a meeting between the Dayton Foundation and folk involved in this process. These two are meant to be in that meeting, so I was typing apologies. So I apologize that I was away for a second. But we are getting as much good information from other people as we can. As you know, in 2019, there was a mass shooting in Dayton. The Dayton Foundation and then Mayor Nan Whaley set up a similar fund. And so we're making sure that we do best practice and gain that experience from others. So we have the executive director of Dayton Foundation on a Zoom call. But to address your question, this fund is, as some people have observed, reactive. And it is still absolutely and utterly crucial that we take the proactive steps that we need to address gun violence in our community. And the mayor is no less committed to taking those steps, no matter what programs or initiatives they may be, Councilwoman Amobian. I would let the chief speak to the idea of gun buybacks. I know we are working at the moment on fugitive safe surrender. We obviously are working on our credible messenger street team and many other initiatives. So none of those efforts should stop, and this does not replace any of those efforts.
I don't think specifically the fund was for gun buybacks. There's been some conversation around that. Right now, it's more just a fugitive safe surrender. We're planning on partnering with the House of Lord, the county, and some other agencies late summer for that. But I do not believe a gun buyback is currently on the plan for that. But I'm glad to revisit it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Boyce.
Yes, and I'm sorry to ask more questions related to the fund, and I don't want to keep you from your meeting, but this might be directed to Mr. Garofalo specifically. Is this fund an emergency response fund that is meant to be paid out fairly quickly to victims of just this particular incident of gun violence, or is this more of an initiative fund, like an affiliate fund akin to something like, that's ongoing, or is this more of a designated fund to victim assistance? Like, who's making the decisions on how the money is being spent, I guess, is my second part of that question.
Yeah, the fund was initially started as a pass-through fund, but as we got more and more into the conversation, we want the fund to be around for a long time so that the funds can be available if an event like this were ever to happen again. So in that respect, as long as we continue our fundraising efforts, as long as we continue to get contributions, money will be put into the fund for future use. As it relates to, what was the second part of your question?
So basically, yeah, are you guys assembling a committee of Akron Community Foundation to make the decisions on how the money will be distributed, or is the money is it a designated fund to victim assistance who is bringing together, coalescing a group of people to make those decisions?
Yeah, this advisory board that's being put together, that is being chaired by the three co-chairs, are the ones that are going to offer assistance and guidance along with support from us at the Akron Community Foundation to be able to make sure the funds are being used wisely and making sure that it's being put to the right use.
So it's an advisory board of the community foundation, basically.
Well, it's an advisory board of the fund, pretty much. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Councilman Fusco.
Thank you. You mentioned before, so far, the $25,000 is coming from United Way, correct?
25 from ACF, 25 from United Way, and a $10,000 donation from a donor-advised fund holder. So $60,000 has been raised so far. As of this morning, I know after our press conference, we did start seeing donations come in, and anxious to see what those are once I get back.
Good. No, this is timely, and until something's done, as we all know, from the feds, even the state would be helpful. this is going to have to be the norm, I think, and this is probably just the beginning. And I don't want to slow down momentum whatsoever, but I do feel, though, strongly, and we can revisit this possibly next week or whatever, but I think council needs to have a seat at the advisory committee level. We are coming in, being asked to spend $150,000 that was already committed probably to something else. So I feel as though we should have a seat, or at minimum, someone from the city should have a seat, and that person ought to let us know, because I appreciate the comments about the guardrails and about what's, how that's going to be designed, and there's a lot of interest, obviously, with regards to council and how that looks. So just for further discussion, we can always amend it later. If it's going to be a short-term thing, we can look at that, but I think that's something for future discussion. So.
The fund co-chairs have already requested a mayoral appointee to the committee.
Okay, good. But, okay, very good on that piece of it. And then finally, and I know we've taken steps already to talk to the community about this. Neighbors, I know some of my colleagues have gotten phone calls, et cetera, from people, and maybe not direct victims, if you will, but people external to the actual event itself. So what say you about that? Is there anything with this? Just asking.
Thank you for bringing that up and acknowledging there are not just 28 victims.
Exactly. That's what we're saying.
Whatsoever.
That's what I'm saying.
They are primary victims, and we triage, we focused on priorities. Those 28 are our priority.
Yeah.
I will share that on Friday, we went and knocked on 300 doors on the Kelly Avenue, 6th, 7th, 8th, and then went over to Joy Park with leaders in the faith community, leaders from that community, police officers, and we were very welcome. For those that we did not see, we left door hangers. Victim Assistance is a nonprofit. We don't have to define the word victim as whatever the law says. There's no holding to that. So our definition of a victim is anyone that is impacted by a crisis, violence, or tragedy. That could be you were a student and your teacher passed away. Unfortunately, there's been a significant number of teachers that had lost their lives in the past few days here in Akron Public Schools. So think about the impact, those children, we could be, helping those individuals. So back to Kelly Ave, you have the 300 partygoers, or 200 or 100, however many were there. In our mind, those people who witnessed that, who were afraid for their lives, who ran, who fell, who had to hide under a car, every single one of those in Victim Assistance eyes is a victim. So the understanding of these funds, right, there's so many people need help. A lot of the individuals that were there in our mind that are victims, they may not be classified from the Akron Police Department as victims, but they could still have expenses. Their cars could get shot up. Their bullet holes at houses. Their cars could have gotten towed and evidence. Well, who's going to pay for the tow bill? Who's going to pay for the windows to be put up? If it was an emergency that night, they need shelter that night. How many kids do they have? They're going to need food in the hotel. So those are the types of phone calls that we get, and we have been able to help those people out because we're a nonprofit, and a victim is a victim of, if they say that they're hurting, we're going to help them. So I hope this fund expands, yes, but 28 is our priority today, but I hope
Yes,
it grows
thank
and
you.
grows, and we can expand beyond gun violence, and,
This is, no, I appreciate this, and it's unfortunate. I think the thing that stuck with me the most, and never had the conversation over the weekend, is like, we have to do this. And that's the thing, and we all feel that as council members, as folks that work for the city, and so thank you for what you do, in all sincerity, and it's so unfortunate we have to go this far for this, and thank you all for stepping up, certainly appreciate it. It's just, it's appreciated but sad.
And I'll respond that we live in a very generous and giving community. I mean, no doubt back on 9/11 when we created the fire truck fund, this community raised $1.4 million that went to support New York City. Not even our community, but New York City.
I was channeling that. Whenever I first heard about that, my mind went right there. And I thought, you know something? You know, this is what we do here in Akron. And so, again, it's appropriate, and I like the design so far and where we're headed. It's just sad that we have to go this far.
I think it's also worth noting for council members that Victim Assistance Program obviously has credibility and has history and professionalism around these issues. For example, in one of the conversations, Leanne raised that, you know, they don't hand cash out to people, but pay for bills or pay for, you know, rent assistance or a hotel if the person's home is no longer livable. Those kinds of things get paid to support you in your time of crisis, but in a way that makes sure that that has an impact on your life and is easy to manage for the victim too. You know, right, yeah. So whether somebody has a bank account or not, whether they have a checkbook or not, that'll be done for them to assist them in their time of crisis.
Yeah. When it comes to the community and victim assistance and Pastor Denton and all, it's just a long-standing history, and thank you for those comments.
Thank you. Councilman DeSazier, do you have comments?
Yeah, I'm not a committee member, but, you know, this conversation that I've been having with myself says that it would be very hard for me to go back to my house and to say that I'm going to be safe right here, because I always was, because the situation changed. In addition to that, I think that there's a lot of scar tissue throughout this community. Not only the 28, and I really, really feel for the life that was lost and the people who have been impacted, as you say. And I agree with you. I like to buttress your comments by saying that this is more far-reaching than we will ever know. It's far-reaching for us because we're all victims in some regard, but also, you know, our first responders who went to the event. To see 27, 28 people, I don't have any further words for it. I just don't know. But so it's got to be on it's on my psyche. I wake up and think about it. So, you know, I just applaud you in what you're doing. And that scar tissue that I talk about, I think is growing. We can't see it because it's in our minds now, and it's embedded in every fiber of what we do, both physically and emotionally. And, you know, I like to buttress your comments and the comments of Councilman Hanna when he says that this has got to be bigger than us now in order to accomplish what we need to do in order to make sure that we bring this to some kind of conclusion where people can go to some set of normalcy. I yield.
Thanks, Councilman. Councilwoman Boyce.
Sorry, I just had one follow-up, and I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. This is the right thing at the right time. I really believe that. The purpose statement of the fund, does it limit funds to be distributed only to victim assistance, or is this a fund that can kind of ebb and flow with needs going forward?
At this time, victim assistance is the only program that's been identified. Again, as we progress and as more dollars come in, we may revisit that at some point, but we realize that they are the experts in their job. Right now, they're the ones who are at the forefront of this, so that's why we identified them as our main partner. Understood. Yeah, and I don't question that at all. I'm just curious. Sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt. My Wi-Fi went out apparently, but I appreciate that, and I agree that's the right thing to do. I'm just wondering if the legal document limits the funds, the way in which the funds can be distributed as being solely for the purposes of victim assistance. Yeah, and again, that's what it is today. We have gotten counsel that if we need to change that down the road, we will be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other council members have any comments or questions? Yeah, this is something that's definitely needed. I've gotten calls from people from out of state, out of the country, asking about this, people who are friends of mine I've known for a while. But I think that there were some comments there that were made in regard to our safety forces. And I think that's something that we do need to visit as well. We have the Safety Forces Support Center that provides safety, or the safety forces, all kinds of support for mental health and so on. We just had a situation in the city of Canton where a member of the safety forces took their own life because of PTSD issues from dealing with some things. So what I'd like to look at is beyond this, to pass this out, but to also look at the possibility of some funds to be able to support the Safety Force Support Center as well. So I'd like to look at this and possibly bring in a piece. I know Councilman DeSager was interested in this as well, to be able to support our Safety Force Support Center.
Mr. Chairman, we are also actively involved in conversations on a federal and state level to secure funds to support the safety forces with overtime and also with mental health support following the incident. And I know the mayor has actively been engaging with Chief Harding and also Chief Henderson to see how we can and when those funds are appropriate and what those opportunities are. But there are funding sources to support in exactly the way you mentioned.
So would that be directly to the department or through the support center itself?
I am not sure, but I believe it is directly to the department.
Okay. I know that the support center is pretty much self-sufficient. They have different fundraisers and so on to be able to raise funds for them and to be able to do all the things that they're looking at as well. So I would like to explore that as we move forward as well. So.
Councilman, I'll also add, last fall, ACF provided a grant to the Akron Police Department for a wellness app, mental health wellness app. That, again, is going to be another tool for them to use for dealing with these situations like that. I don't know if you want to comment, Chief Harding.
Yeah, no, thank you for the support on it. That's been very beneficial. The Cortico app that we've rolled out for first responder to the police department has been great. But also, I appreciate your comments about the Safety Force Support Center. They're an amazing partner. They do a great job helping us support our first responders.
Because it's just not our police department that's dealing with this stress. I mean, we had 8 med units on the scene. We had people come in off duty to try to, coordinate everything. And then our communication, the communication center did a phenomenal job. But they also deal with a tremendous amount of stress, because they're at a radio. They don't know what's going on. They don't know, anything that's happening other than the transmission. So extremely stressful for them as well. And that's specifically where the support center comes in to be able to help those folks that have the issues. What's your pleasure? I'm guessing suspension of the rules with a favorable report.
Yes, given the gravity of the situation and the immediacy of the need, we would humbly request suspension of the rules, yes.
Committee, could I get a motion?
Motion to suspend.
Second.
All in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, well, thanks so much. This was a great presentation. We have nothing else to come before us, and we will be adjourned.
We'll begin the Budget and Finance Committee in just a few minutes. Thank you. Our final committee meeting of the day is the Budget and Finance Committee. Those committee members are Lombardo, Amobian, Fusco, Boys, and Hardy. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. I'd like to call the Budget and Finance meeting to order. First, with the approval of last week's meeting minutes.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, very good. So we have 3 new pieces, but we also have one old piece from our agenda last week that has been pulled by the sponsor. So we'll just get right into our new piece number 2, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without publicly advertising for bids with KeyBank for the provision of certain lockbox services, including lockbox form review, data entry, and migration for the city's tax division, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler is here.
Thank you, Councilman Lombardo and members of the
Thank you for
Finance
being
Committee. So this piece that we're bringing for you today would allow us to enter into a contract without the formality of advertising for bids with KeyBank's department that would provide lockbox services for our income tax division. In late November of 2021, we were notified that the provider that we had been using for lockbox services, effectively administrative service to open and process paper tax returns, was going out of business. So throughout 2023 and now into 2024, I think I said 21, I meant 22. So
Yeah.
for 2023 and 2024, we've been doing these manual returns in-house using the staff there. This would allow us to become a little bit more automated and focus on auditing rather than data entry and utilizing that staff in a more effective manner. After doing some interviews with Huntington, KeyBank, and I believe one other vendor, KeyBank is truly the only one that can provide these services, in effect, as a sole service provider. For a yearly basis, at least for 1 year that we're looking to agree to right now, it would not to be exceeding $150,000. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Sure. So one question I had, was this budgeted
Yes.
on the legislation? Okay. The box wasn't marked on the
that's my bad.
legislation, but okay, yeah, because I saw 150. Very good. Any questions from our committee members?
Yeah.
And Mr. Fusco has a question.
So you say this is the sole source?
Yes, as far as we can tell, there's not any other providers that would take the data from the tax returns and enter it into a way that we can utilize it in our city tax platform.
Okay. This is within the city, or with, where are they located? Where are they?
I believe it's in Cleveland. I would invite Don Smith to go to the microphone and speak. He's our tax commissioner for the city of Akron, so.
Oh, got it to work.
Well,
Good afternoon. Yes, KeyBank is located in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland, and they have been serving as lockbox for some of the larger cities, including Cleveland, Ohio, and also the Regional Income Tax Agency. So they have a demonstrated performance and about a 98.9% accuracy rate that they've been able to demonstrate.
Is that acceptable? I'm joking. Thank you.
No more questions. Very good. Any other committee members? I do not see any other committee members. What would be your pleasure for this, Mr. Wheeler?
Since we're still ironing this out, we're just fine with putting this on the
With
consent agenda.
Okay. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
There's been motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our second item today is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without publicly advertising for bids with Innovative Software Services Incorporated for electronic filing and payment software for the city's income tax division and declaring an emergency. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you. So this is the second piece for our income tax division. Innovative controls our back-end software called City Tax, And what we're hoping to accomplish is this, is a more seamless process for citizens and taxpayers to file their individual income tax returns. So we are currently with a company with MITS, and we are in the process of parting ways with them, and this would then be a seamless integration.
Thank you. Is there any questions from our committee members regarding this? I have one question. This will, if this passes, would take effect for the 2024 income tax.
Correct. This would be, for the
tax
2024. So we would be testing it later this year and hoping to go live before that. Of course, it'd be more of a silent thing. But then that would be fully available to citizens, early next year.
Okay, very good. Mr. Fusco, you had a question?
I kind of hate asking this question. Maybe you have a good answer. I know there was a move afoot previously out of Columbus in terms of the business community filing, especially where there was more than one entity that had payroll receipts, et cetera, and then putting that under one roof, if you will, out of Columbus, out of the, the auditors or whatever. I don't know where they were going to put that, but is that move still afoot, or where is that in the process? Do we know? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't have an update on that one right now.
Yeah, because I know there was talk about that, whereas, they were going to consolidate, and then the state would be the collection place for all income tax.
Right, and I think at this point, it's kind of stalled out in committee. I don't think it's...
That's a good answer, then. We'll take that. Thanks.
Consent for this.
Consent. Very good. Motion for consent. We have motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Consent agenda it is. Item number 4 is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent or her designee to enter into a 4-year renewal with Tyler Technologies of the Odyssey Case Management System software as a service agreement and declaring an emergency. Is this your turn?
It is.
Our law director, Deb Matz.
Deb Matz. I'm just here to help the clerk in the court.
Deb.
Microphone.
Sorry about that. So this particular renewal is for the cloud environment that the court and the clerk's new case management will live in. That project is still in the implementation phase. I'll be honest, the court is largely completed. The clerk is, moving along slowly but surely. But the bottom line is, in order to complete that implementation, we actually have to have a cloud environment within which that process can take place. Rather than do an automatic renewal, that's not something that I favor. I don't think the finance folks favor it either. In order to get a little bit better pricing, we are agreeing to a 4-year agreement. And so, and by the way, the first year, March 1st of 2024 to February 28th of 2025, is already in the budget. And so I mean, at this point, I'm inclined to keep it short and sweet and let you all ask whatever questions you might have.
Just interested that the 4-year agreement, each year it steps up as far as pricing goes. Possibly more data to handle, I don't know. Seems like it would be divided by 4 in my simple mind, but it does step up.
Yes, there is an increase every year. And quite frankly, with the automatic renewal, we were sort of at the mercy of whatever Tyler's pricing was in that given year. And so this gives us at least a certain amount of budget certainty.
So it can't go beyond what's already
It
agreed
cannot,
to
yeah.
in the contract.
Cannot
Very
go
good.
beyond what's in the contract.
Very good. Any other questions from committee members?
I do want to jump in and say that with software as a service contracts, these step-ups are becoming increasingly common. So it's not unusual to see this in any major software provider right now.
And again, all I can think of is, maybe there's more data or just software. It's technology.
Yeah.
Need to stay
Well, there
on top
would,
of it. So,
as a matter of course, be more data because it's just going to continue to hold
Right.
case filings and the documents that get filed, and it's approximately, at least as far as criminal cases are concerned, I think, maybe total cases, 60,000 cases a year.
goodness.
So that is always going to continue to build.
Okay. Any other questions from committee members or other council members? I do not see any. Your pleasure would be?
I would like to have it passed today, please.
Very good. All right, we have one motion on the floor for suspension of the rules with a favorable report. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Motion passes. We'll
Thank you.
get that out tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And without any other items on our agenda, this Budget and Finance meeting is adjourned.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 6:30. Thank you.